Right. Didn't have the camera turned on to start with, but there we go. I tell you, I don't plan these things. Yeah, just done a lesson and talking about lighting and how much difference it makes to have the right light in that subject. You know, you can see the lighting and how you handle the lighting better, or the image better, than if it's just, a single source, straight on, everything bleached out, that kind of thing. It just brings so much life to it. I mean, light is life. That's what we say, don't we? So I thought I'd take it one step further. This image, you can just about see. I had to turn it that way because the sun, and it's sunny again in Yorkshire, so it's there's something wrong in the world. We're not used to it. I just said in the lesson now. The thing is, whenever the sun shines in Yorkshire, doesn't matter what time of year it is, everybody thinks it's summer. So everybody takes the clothes off. They all sort of walk around with t-shirts on, and the only thing they don't do, all those people that own cabriolets don't take the top down on their car. Why on earth did they buy a soft top car and not, whenever it shines, I'd be taking it down all the time. And they're all automatic. It's not like it's a pram hood that you have on like an old, Morgan or something like that. These are actually automated. So you just press a button, the roof goes down. But they don't. Anyway, so it's warm and it's lovely and everything's growing. So, so the sun's on the screen. That's why it's painted. I've moved it that way because I can't see it. This thing of, well, you've just shown you the shape of things, the way that simply happen. I mean, dramatic lighting like this is always going to be a different thing. I think mostly because, I talk about it being a responsive thing, and I think that is probably what the drama plays into that. So it's always going to be a much more much easier to respond to because of the drama of the image, and which is always something. I mean, it's looking for someone to smile, looking for someone to sort of be crying or laughing or any kind of emotion. Once you can identify it, it just makes the process a lot easier. So I think that, and the trick, if you haven't got that, because one of the things that's going to happen is that whenever we do a live model session, I always film it and use the images from the film. So I don't really draw from life. It's just there as a reference. I saw somebody talking about the show on the telly about portraits and how people take pictures anyway and why bother and all this. It's because they don't understand really. I mean, only somebody who wasn't an artist would say that. But part of the reason is to capture this moment, the emotional moment thing. Part of the reason is that when you first meet somebody, this is Robert Henry said this, so it's not me that's telling you this. He said that when you first meet, that's the moment you need to paint or you need to capture. So what better way than to take an image of them? If you do it if I do what I do, which is to video it, and then because obviously when you talk to them, they're relaxed. So you can see this happening on the show. They're relaxing, they're talking to them, and they're going to capture a moment when that person is themselves, not the actor, not the film star, or whoever it is that they're drawing or painting. So they know, these people who draw those or on those shows who do that, they know. They don't tell anybody else that now because clearly people think that, why are they working for photographs, and all that. So, but I'm telling you now, that's why they do it, and so they can see this true self, this natural self, and that's what they latch onto. But whenever we do lessons where we use a live model, I would take a photograph of them or video of them and then work from the stills. It's just a better way to capture the essence of somebody. So as I say, it's in terms of and you can see it's the dramatic lighting on here. So lighting is everything. Light is what we're trying to capture. We're not trying to. I mean, even features are secondary to lighting because the lighting defines the features. So but if you can light a subject, and you have got the option to light a subject, you know, use just references all the time. Just sit them by a window. When I was doing the pandemic thing, and people were sending me images, I used to say to them, just send me an image of you sat with a doorway or a window at the right, you know, right or left of you, and that's what I would. That's what I drew. Funny enough, nobody ever sent me anything, so you know, it was a bit weird. I got a few sent, but they were all, and I'm a bit prima donna-ish about it and all that, I know, but they were all a bit, you know, wedding photographs. And I know some people can draw those wedding photographs, they just make copies of them and all that. But I'm not just going to copy a wedding photograph, even whether it's a big, you know, whether it's a good cause. That's not really me. And I think one of the things you've got to, if anything, you've got to do is you've got to be you. And I'm very particular. Somebody said, well, then it's a peculiar. Then I think that's probably I'm that as well. But I'm very particular about what it is that I draw and what triggers my creativity or desire to express my response. It's a very sort of specific thing. And I've just been saying in the lesson, I have no idea why I think like this. I have no idea why it should be me that thinks that. As I said, Robert Henry Rice said these things 100 years ago, and yet, you know, it's not the kind of common thing you hear. It's all about sort of skill and technique and all those things, and not really about skill and technique and all those things, and not really about much else. So, you know, your ability, you know, this thing about we were talking about the response factor. So or the response element to doing this. So the thing is that you respond to something, to somebody, to a face, to an individual, to a persona. You respond to that person differently to what you would somebody else. You know, it's that thing, you know, you meet somebody and you decide whether you like that person or not. It's that, and that's the response. It's based on your response to that person, you know, and that's exactly the same thing as making a portrait. It's exactly the same thing. It's why professional portrait artists get to know their subjects, you know, spend time with them, so that they can respond to that individual properly, rather than it being just about, oh, I'm just going to let me draw you in my style, you know, that kind of thing. And it's like, no, it doesn't work like that. And in theory, every portrait you do, regardless of your technical ability, it should be different. It should feel different, because it's a different person. Why would it be the same every time? I treat every portrait that I draw exactly the same. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense if you're a responsive artist. It makes sense if you're a technical production artist. That's exactly what you'd expect. But the thing about the responsive artist, which is I don't know. I think all artists are responsive artists. It's just sometimes they get overwhelmed by the execution of it all. That it becomes about execution and their outcome is based, and their judgment of their outcome is based on execution, and this, which is why you get a lot of people that produce similar kind of paintings because or drawings, because they have they've absorbed this meme that it all has to be done in a certain way, and the production is the goal, you know, the ultimate measure of what you've achieved. It's because most people would think that, oh, it's difficult to get the essence. It's not difficult to get the likeness, because you can learn to do that. It's just a certain number of technicalities or whatever, however you want to do that, you can learn to do that. So if that can be taught, if that can be learned, then let's just do that, is what generally people will say. But the thing about the the responsive side of it, or taking the responsive thing, is that people don't explain what it is. So in response, as I said, if you meet somebody, you respond to them in a certain way. It's a skill that we've all got. We've all got that skill. It's nothing that you have to learn. It's nothing that is peculiar to people. It's nothing that requires talent in order to respond to somebody. I mean, obviously, you've got to be somebody that is able to communicate and mix with other human beings, but that's just 99.9% of people in the world. And if that can be the driver of all this stuff, then all of a sudden your skills required are determined by that. They're determined by this response. So your skills grow in line with that approach, and all of a sudden you become a responsive artist, because you're letting your human abilities govern the way that you manifest your portraits. And so it's not like a difficult thing to understand. It's not something that people... I want to swap that because it's dying on me. That's gone a bit brown. I think it's because people are still invested in the craft. It's still somebody was talking about drawing and some book about drawing. I think Rockwell. It was a Rockwell book, and they said, if you like drawing, then keep doing it. Something, I don't know what he said. You've got a God-given talent. It's the colours changed. That's what he said. And however you think about that, I mean, I don't really think that it's a gift from anybody, but people do think that. But this one person said that drawing is just a skill. Anybody can learn it, and that's the thinking right there. And it's dead right. It is the kind of copy and drawing skills that you see are exactly that, just skills, and anybody can learn them, and people do, and that's kind of the problem. Because from my point of view, I'm fighting against that thinking all the time. Of people come to me and they just assume that I'm going to just teach them how to hold the pencil, kind of thing, and when it's far from it. It's probably the last thing on the list to learn how to hold a pencil or hold a piece of charcoal. So that's the I suppose the root of all this. This is the major problem. As I said yesterday about the course, the major problem is that people have this perception of what it is to draw, and it is a skill and all the rest of it. But we ignore the other bit, the bit that makes it special, the bit that puts a life into it, and all the rest of it. So it triggers everything. So you will choose images that require a level of drawing skills which you probably already have, which is wrong. So rather than choosing an image that moves you, you will choose images that will show off your skills, and that is always going to be wrong. Then as I say, trying to get to this point where people will do that, will embrace the responsiveness of things, it's really hard, because if you've already got drawing skills, you're not going to forget them. They're always going to be there. It'll be always your go-to place or safe place, So you're never going to really break away from that and become a responsive artist. You'll struggle and say, I want to make it more lifelike. I want to capture the life in a portrait. But the truth of it is, you've got the obstacles are so vast that you've got to sort of unlearn stuff, and that's the hard bit. That's the real hard bit. When in fact, when you started, it was a responsive thing from the beginning. You'd have been in a different place. You may have acquired exactly the same skills, but the skills were based on this response, on a more responsive approach, and that's the secret to it. I think that's if you can embrace the responsive side of things, and almost ignore the technicality of doing it. Because that's what we were doing just now. Forget about how, if you start considering, this, the mark should be this direction, and I'm going to achieve the density there by doing this and doing that and doing the other. Once you've done that, once you get into that place, that's what it becomes. It becomes only about that. which is fine, and which is a lot of people do that. It's a, you know what I mean? These people that will spend weeks on a drawing or months on a painting and all the rest of it. Those people, it's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. That's just their way of doing it. It doesn't mean to say that they're wrong or I'm right and they're wrong. It doesn't mean any of that. It just means that if you want a more responsive approach to this, then there has to be a different driver. It has to be a different approach. And that's the, you know, if you get into that place is the hard bit. So if you've already got skills, you got to forget them. You know, you've got to unlearn a lot of stuff and stop doing the things that are getting in the way. Because there are times when you do this, and we were talking about this exactly same thing again in the lesson, where there are times when you do this when it is completely wrong. And you've got to be brave enough to leave that in terms of, you know, the sort of standard drawing stuff. And you've got to be brave enough to leave that, understanding that it's not the execution that's making this great. It's your response that's making this great. So, and sometimes that response is completely visceral. It's nothing considered at all. As I said, if you're considering which way the lines are going to go, in order to create a certain effect, then perhaps you're not connecting well with the subject. So that's the big problem, is that because of the technicalities of things and the consideration of the technicalities of things, then it prevents you from having that human response, because it's a production. It's about a production of something, and that's the problem. So I'm as I said, toying with the idea. If I can do it, I don't know if I can do it. With the idea of saying, you know, this is a way of drawing that is probably not like any other. I mean, nearest people talk about it is some kind of scribble thing, but the only reason it's scribble is because it is connected directly to my creative consciousness. It's not a considered thing, so naturally it's going to have an element of spontaneity and uncontrolled mark making, because there is I mean, we talked about it being a exploration, and which it is. So consequently, when you're feeling around in the jungle, you're going to be, you know, sort of running in and out of various areas trying to find a way through it, and it's that kind of exploration of something unknown, although it is known as in terms of this is a face, but it's not known in terms of this is an entity, this is a persona. It's not, you don't know that. You're feeling around to find out and connect with that persona. So it's, as I said, it doesn't have the same kind of priorities as your more technical approach. It doesn't need those priorities. It needs, this is another thing we were talking about with the tonal side of things, to create the shape, and obviously to, you know, manipulate the or to capture the persona by manipulating or capturing the light, but using light to capture persona, basically. There are things that you do that aren't your sort of predicted things, you know, sort of the linear things, this kind of thing that happens on the top there, on the forehead there. A lot of these meandering lines that occur are a result of me finding out more about this face. So you've got to be open to that. This is the problem with it. You know, if you're technically minded and it has to be, you know, produced in a certain way, then you'll have problems with accepting the parts of it that are probably more full of life than you could ever wish for, but you don't leave them, or you don't accept them because you can't see them. Basically, you're not being present with it. But it's very difficult because you've got this other thing that says, oh no, this is how you shade, this is how you blend, this is how you capture tones. There's that, whatever that comes from, you're going to be stuck with that. if you're already doing this. Now, if you're not already doing this, if you're a beginner, then you've got to get in touch with me, because whether you buy the courses or not, let me put you on the right road, because it's I can shortcut everything. Trust me. But once you're in there, there isn't. It's not like there's no way back, because you can get back from the technique is everything sort of route, and ultimately you will develop techniques anyway, and you'll have probably better techniques than if you just went, oh, I'm going to learn to draw eyes for a week or a month or a year or 10 years or whatever, and then I'm going to learn to draw faces. If you went that route, then come back in 10 years and you can tell me I'm right. But it's the constant, like, oh no, it's not done like this kind of thing, which is, I suppose I've faced that all my life, and I've told you about this before, but I've faced that all my life. But I'm definitely one of those people that always wants to look for a better way. I'm always one of those sort of, there is a better way than doing this, and a quicker way, and and all that, and this is before lazy and impatient route. There's always a better way to do it, and I suppose is particularly with portraits, because that's the thing with portraits. There's no other art form that tries to embody the life of something. I suppose you're drawing pets, maybe you do that with pets, but not with a vase of flowers. You wouldn't embody the life of the flowers. You might do. You might think that life, there's life in flowers. Well, there is, but it's not sentient, so it's not going to be moody, is it? I've got a moody rose, or I've got an excited lily. So it's ever so warm in here, mate. I'm melting at the moment. This is why I'm a bit hysterical, because it's too warm. I'm hysterical because it's warm, and we're in Yorkshire, which is a justification for being hysterical anyway. And it's very very, very close, very warm, and it's only a little wooden shack, so I've no protection against the rays, if you know what I mean. And it'll build up the heat and store the heat. So, as I said, as you can see with this, we're talking about the light in it at the start of this. It is always about the light. This is what that was about. That's about the light. You can see this was going through a very similar stage, and the manipulation of the light, and that's what makes a portrait. Now, it's also the mood. I mean, both of these are very moody images. This extreme contrasting image is probably beyond the mood. I mean, she has got a mood on her, but it's not necessarily as visible as in that guy's face. But that as I say, this is the thing about light, because it can convey a mood so well, that, and it's also probably the number one thing you want to focus on when you're drawing something. I mean, other than trying to get things in the right place, which is kind of, when it's lit like this, it's not that difficult. We've said about that one, because we were on about in the classes doing themes. What we said about this one was, look how easy those placements are. The placements are very simple. You can see, if we're talking about the 3 dots, you can see top of his ear, that eye, very simple. And then you've got sort of simple design. You've got a very dark area there, large shape, and then just a mid-tone shape there, and the rest of it's fairly simple. Define the side of it with extra tone, and suddenly you've got a face. So it's the light side of things is I've lost my charcoal now. No, I said I just throw it down and forget about it. I've lost it all. So the light side of things is always, I mean, I'm always sort of drawn to literally to pick images that are like this, rather than something that's not defined by light. It's back to the it's easy to do thing. It's easy to do it. And as I said earlier, if you want to do it with subjects, just give them a side light, whether it's a window or a door or whatever it might be. Or if you're in a room, put a light to one side. So it's always good to create those definite shapes, and it makes it an awful lot easier to draw and to capture the face. But as I said, when you get to a point where it is just about the light and it is just about finding the tonal values, regardless how you do it, the thing changes. It doesn't really have this all of a sudden the need to be precise with things, because I can just indicate those tones. I mean, there is a hierarchy of things, by the way, and that's another thing. I think that's if you're a student of design, you know what I'm talking about when I talk about visual hierarchy. But when you can work that and you understand how that works, to define the important bits, and sometimes it can be just an element. It can be the face. This is probably the eye is probably one of the dominant hierarchies in this face. The hair is a dominant hierarchy, and then sort of most of the darker areas you would call dominant hierarchies, or the dominant elements of the hierarchy, and then it goes through the tone. So that way of structuring something in terms of your execution makes things a lot easier, because you can start with those elements, particularly with something like this. This is a great image for. It's one of those images that could be in silhouette and you still recognize it. It's one of those kind of images, and it's good. It's a good way to learn about it. I mean, I don't say things like Notan, because it's like it would sound like I know what I'm doing, but it is one of those things to simply find the darker shapes. I'm not sure the Notan. I mean, I only recently discovered it. I didn't even know what Chiaroscuro was until sort of 4 months ago. But I've been doing that kind of thing anyway. But that's another story. I mean, that's because I investigate and learn on my own grounds. I don't need to be told what perspective is and things like that. Although I was, as I said before, I was schooled in perspective, and I look back on it now, and I must have been a half-wit to not know it already, and then halfway to believe that it was important, So somebody gave me a book on perspective. So, anyway, so that's it really. It's about, you can see, it's really about the when it comes to images, try to find images that have a definitive tonal structure, as opposed to vague tonal structure, because they're really hard to draw. You know what I mean? You're gonna make it easy for yourself, haven't you? You know what I mean? It doesn't. Why make it hard? So look for tonal definition. Where elements of the face are clearly defined by tone. In this case, extremely defined by tone, and then how you actually create those tones. Just don't get too hung up on the method of doing it, the way of doing it. Just let it happen and just respond to it. And if you feel it has to be lines that go this way, then it go that way, do that. Don't get hung up on there has to be a procedure in terms of how you apply tone or how you create tonal effects. Don't get hung up on all those sort of things, because you will learn all those things. There's no doubt you will learn all those things, but the priority first of all is to learn to connect and respond. That's the number one thing you've got to do. Learn to connect and respond, and let that response then determine your growth as an artist and the way that you develop your mark making and things. We just, by the way, you're probably not seeing this thing that I wrote, and I wrote this about mark making, and it basically, what I say is that it's all about the tension between the failure of the mark and the anticipation of the mark, and it's the vibrance between those two things, between it may not work or it may succeed fabulously, and it's the tension between those two things. I think that's part of the adrenaline rush thing, when you're really, really enjoying it and in the flow and whatever, because there's a chance that these marks might not work. Whatever I'm doing, there's a chance that these marks might not work, but there's a chance that they will. So there's a kind of a joining of this state, and it becomes as I said, like a vibration between the two, a tension between those two things. And as you're doing that, as you're in that state and creating that tension, those marks will be probably the best marks you'll ever make. But you can't contrive those marks. They have to be a result of your response. But yeah, we can see with this, you can see the vibrance in this, and that's probably the most important thing for me. That there is something that really like makes it like this one does, that really makes it feel alive. I think that's the bottom line. It's just something that makes it feel alive. And if but by connecting and responding, you can do that, then do that. But you won't engineer the life into it. You won't practice the life into it. You'll only experience the life. You'll only experience what it is to put life into it. And that, as I said earlier, is just a human thing. We can all connect with other humans. And just bottle that, channel that, put it into your portraits, put it into your mark making. That's the goal. Put it into the choice of subjects that you want to draw. Put it into the way you light a subject. Anyway, I think I've done actually. There's a little sort of a bit of tweaking. I'm gonna put this big hoop earring on there, but I'll have to stop talking to do that because I've been wobbling all over the place. So there's a hoop earring there, and then there's another one that comes down here as well. So just needs a steady hand, and yeah, it's kind of like there and there. The big one there is that one. So getting that one in the right place is the critical one. But this is just a highlight there. You're saying that it sort of swoops around back there and back there. And then yeah, maybe there'll be some kind of charcoal on there, just to give it some kind of lift. But yeah, you can see it does it already. Yeah, so and maybe something within there. I don't know, but yeah, done. I think. And yeah, it just needs stuff like that, doesn't it? I mean, those are, I think, doing it when I do those, and I do them, I used to do them all the time on the drawings. I always thought it was like a bit of a trick, yeah, because it's sort of, you know what I mean, when you get near anything that needs an edge on it, just to put a bit of tone on there, and you can just cut away with the rubber down there, and sort of me getting all kind of, when I'm talking about not being technical, all of a sudden I'm talking about technicalities. But I always thought doing things like that, I've done it on that one as well, is it's a bit of a trick, because look how it's made that sort of stand out all of a sudden. Anyway, I'm going now because my tea's ready. Right, I'll catch you in the next one.